Liverpool were dismantled by Man City. United fall out of third spot, forfeiting that to Newcastle. Graham Potter, Brendan Rodgers, Patrick Vieira have all been sacked. We are going to talk about all of that and more on today's installment of the Knobcast. And let me tell you right now, when it comes to the Graham Potter section, I'm so angry and irate I can't even speak. When it gets to the Graham Potter section, I'm going to be very passionate about it because if you've been following me for any amount of time, then you know that I'm a big Graham Potter fan. I'm also joined by my podcast co-host, Gasky, who's in the dark today.
Hello. Yes, sadly, the ring light has decided to give up hope, like a lot of them United players did against Newcastle.
Ooh, that's a good segue.
Yeah. So yes, it's a bit dark today, but hopefully by next week we'll have it resolved.
Wonderful stuff. It's a dark screen and a dark day for Liverpool United and Graham Potter and Nobbins, because I do like Graham Potter. But let's start at a happy note for Nobbins because and a funny note for Gasky, I guess, because Liverpool got absolutely trounced by Manchester City 4-1 in the Premier League in what was a must-win game and potentially a tricky game on paper. But Gasky, I don't even think this was maybe an issue of, Liverpool were bad. I thought Liverpool were sort of all right, but City were just on it, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, when Liverpool took the lead, you thought, oh, here we go. They've been so hit and miss Liverpool this season, but the two games against City where they'll just be perfect for them. And then after that, obviously, equaliser went in. And then City just couldn't stop them. When they're playing that way and they can stretch you, and then when you've got Trent at right back who decides to press in centre forward, I think I saw at one point, target. And really his best game, I think, for City in that game. Obviously, I know you got the handicap of Trent being the player you're running at, but he was immense. And City were immense. Liverpool were probably par, to be fair, in terms of how they played. But you got to step it up against City. So, and they didn't, and they got trounced, pretty much. So.
Yeah, I think I've seen that clip of Trent that you're talking about. I think it's like in the 85th minute or 90th minute, and he's just like running around like a headless chicken, trying to like press like City's keeper and defenders.
You can't press on your own.
Exactly.
It doesn't work.
And he puts his hands up like, oh, who's helping me? And even like the original tweet was something like, oh, no one's helping him. Like, look, he's trying really hard. It's like that's how children play football, where they just run after the ball.
Honestly, it really irritates me, right? Because not a single person, when anyone says how bad Trent is, no one has ever commented on his attacking side, because his attacking side is fantastic. His pass for the first goal, for Liverpool's goal, was great, but that should be his secondary role. He's a fullback. His primary should be to be able to defend, and then going forward, perfect. If you can do both, then you become one of the best fullbacks in the world. But if you can't do the defensive part, then there's no point. Change position. Simple as that.
Change position, or change up, or switch up and get out of here, basically. If you can't hack it, leave. Essentially. Yes, we will talk about Grealish, because he was fantastic. What a surprise. Jack Grealish with another really good performance. But there were good performances all around for City. I thought John Stones in the right-back inverted central midfield role looks like he's
Can we agree as well? Sorry, John Stones is probably the most underrated defender in the league, because no one ever talks about him. He gets on with his job, but he doesn't. Very, very rarely makes an error. And no one ever, when you're talking about the centre backs, you're talking about other players and big names, but he's the one that no one seems to talk about. And that you're doing a good job if no one has anything bad to say.
Yeah, he does just quietly get on with his business, doesn't he? And it's like the exact opposite of what it was when he first came to City. This I don't know how old he was, but it was like 20 or 21 or something from Everton, and he was very scrawny, and he just had constant mistakes in him all the time. His first season did not go well, and we spent a lot of money on him. I think it was like 45 or 50 million, but it was a lot of money for a defender, especially 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was. But then, basically thereafter, there've been some bumps along the way. But basically for the past sort of 2 or 3 years, he has been genuinely excellent for England as well. And now, not only has he improved basically all facets of his game, but now he can play as an inverted fullback. Like, he's
going forward.
He's following in the footsteps of Kimmich and Lahm and all these traditional fullbacks playing in central midfield, and he's a centre half who's just stepped up into it flawlessly. And like his touches on Saturday, it was like you wouldn't think that he's a centre half playing in midfield. You think he's just a midfielder.
See, these are the things that you've got to identify when people, when people always argue on who's the best manager in history and stuff. No one will ever say Pep because he's got the money and he just buys the players. He's bought a player from Everton for 50 million. Okay, a lot of money. But look what he's turning him into. That's all Pep. That's no one else. He's made him into this player. And these are the type of players that he's finding and making into world-class players. Look at the way Alvarez is going. Who's even heard of him, really, before he gets City? And, this is on the manager. No one else, really. So...
Yeah, really good point. I want to talk about Alvarez just after we talk about Stones. He's a very good-looking man. Lovely hair. I was going to say something, and I got distracted by his hair. What were we just talking about then? He's inverted. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The fact that Guardiola, when he came to City, is one of his first signings. He signed Gundogan and then John Stones, I think. So it's certainly his first defensive signing in his first season in the Premier League. And it does go to show that, basically, Pep would have had... He could have signed basically whoever he wanted in the world. And he opts to sign some random kid from Everton who's had one or two good seasons. I think it just goes to show that clearly they identified early on that he was going to be a Guardiola-like defender.
It's as if someone who manages in the Premier League knows better than Twitter, and social media and football fans, don't they? A bit weird, that, isn't it? How he knows what he wants more than username 5479 on Twitter.
Oh, he's called you out. Even name checked you.
I even name checked you.
Whoever you
username
are.
5479
with your egg profile picture.
Yes, the egg profile pictures as well. Or the anime ones. They're just as bad.
Oh god, yeah. Or something like the picture of footballer. Yeah,
yeah. Footballer one as
name
well.
A footballer season, name a footballer SZN or something like that.
Oh yes.
But yeah, John Stones was genuinely fantastic. He was there was a really good clip that City shared. I think it was of the second no, it was the third goal actually, where he was just really involved in the build up to it from central midfield, and it was fantastic. You normally see Rico Lewis doing that, but the fact that Stones can do it as well, just another bit to his bow that he's just been able to add this season, which has been fantastic. You said Alvarez. Here's a question, Gasky. How many clubs in the Premier League does Alvarez not start for?
Oh,
because I feel
right now, I honestly can't.
There's not too many. I think that.
I can't think of. You'd maybe. I don't think any, because the only one I think I'd argue
Spurs
is Spurs, and the only one that you'd maybe argue is Arsenal with Jesus, but then that's one that you could say either or. Really,
I think that
the only one that you outright he wouldn't start would be Spurs for Kane. So
yeah, I've just got the league table, just having a look. But I can only base it off this season because I've only seen I didn't watch River Plate last year, to be honest. So just based on this season, I think he would start for Arsenal because, again, Jesus has been injured for a lot of this season. Newcastle, I think he's probably been better than Isak, who's had his own injury issues, and Wilson. United, Weghorst enough.
That's all they need.
Exactly, yeah. Spurs, Kane, no. Brighton, he would. I think Brentford, he probably wouldn't, because Ivan Toney's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Liverpool, he's had a better season than Darwin Nunez. I don't want to hear it.
Yes, facts.
Yeah, facts. There, Gasky said it, so it must be true. Villa, again, he's starting over Ings. Mitrovic, well, he's always suspended, isn't he? So...
Well, 3-game ban for pushing the ref, okay.
Yeah, and there's not too many. I'm just having a look at the rest of them. I think
in terms of outright no, there's only Tottenham. There's no one else, really.
You could make a debate for basically, and City as well, to be fair.
Oh yeah, well yeah, there you go.
But yeah, he's so good, and he was really good in that game.
Yeah, but that's why City will always be at the top, because when your sub striker starts for 17 other teams, you've done it right. When you don't know when the other team don't know who's going to play, makes an issue. And the problem you've got is well, obviously we'll get on to United game next, but when one player doesn't play, it's amazing how much the team just flops or folds based on one player. So,
and he's so versatile as well. Like he can play striker, but he can play in either wing. He can play just behind the striker as well. It's a fantastic player to have. Never mind as a backup choice. It's actually a bit mad that City have two of the best strikers in the league and they only play with one striker. Maybe the 4-4-2 out of possession should make a comeback so they can play both of them in the same team up top. And what else happened in that game? Yeah, I just don't think that Liverpool could really handle City's pressing. It's been an issue with them all season, Liverpool, really. I did think for the second goal, look, Alisson gets a lot of praise, which is fair enough. Maybe I'm being harsh, Gassy. For the second goal, you know that really good switch by Alvarez into Mahrez's path? It's someone's path, I don't know. I can't remember who it is. Do you not think that Alisson should have come out and claimed that? Because I'm thinking if Ederson is there, he's charging out and claiming that.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what makes a good keeper is you command your box. Like keepers get a lot of protection, so risk it. Come and get it. And if someone touches you, if you come jumping out for a ball, you're getting a free kick. Simple as that. So you might as well come and grab it. But then if your defenders, so you know when you're in sync with each other and you know your keeper's coming. Maybe that's why. Maybe the defenders kind of just thought the keeper's coming and he didn't.
Well,
that's a hesitation.
Well, I think it was. I think Robertson was making a gesture as if to say like come on, come and claim it. I think he was thinking that when the ball came in from Alvarez, I was like, oh, here, Alisson's about to sweep, off camera and then come into it, and it just didn't come. I was like, oh. Well, weird. There's a chance here. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to seeing Ederson coming out, rightly or wrongly. He does get it wrong sometimes, but he's always out. So that was a really weird thing there. And Jack Grealish was man of the match. He was absolutely fantastic. Isn't it weird, Gasky? If you give a player a season to adapt to a totally new team and structure and game time and patience, it's almost as if that you'll see an improved player in their second season.
But this is the argument with every team. When a player comes in and everyone's like, "Oh, he's rubbish, he's garbage," allow them. Allow them. Make sure they're getting game time, not coming off the bench for a season, because that's like, well, anyone can come off the bench and it doesn't make a difference. You come off the bench when you're 2-0 up. It's like, well, the rest of your team aren't going to try as hard. So you're not going to be able to do your best. So, he's had, Grealish had loads of game time this season. And look how good he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Haaland was absent, but Alvarez ain't a bad backup. And I thought City just absolutely dismantled them, to be honest. Liverpool weren't terrible. They did make some individual mistakes, like I think of the one where De Bruyne had just nudged in ahead of Robertson. Robertson dived in, probably shouldn't have done. And then I think Mahrez just charged at Van Dijk. He again tried to use his aura to defend. It's not 2019 anymore.
Liverpool this season just play very mid-table, like a mid-table team does, where you go, oh, they played all right, but all right's not good enough. All right is mid-table, and they are where all right is. So, that's it.
And just goes to show how quickly things can change in football. This time, 3 weeks ago, I think I was basically saying, Liverpool top 4, guarantee.
They absolutely battered United, and then that's the first goal they've scored since. So, it shows, one game doesn't matter, and then simple as that, and it can all crumble afterwards. So
who knows? Maybe they'll beat Arsenal and Chelsea next week, and maybe string some results together.
They could easily go and win 6 points in the next 6 from the next 2 games, and then boom.
Absolutely.
You never know. So.
But City 4, Liverpool 1. Really good game to watch as a City fan, obviously, and a must-win game given the context of Arsenal being, assuming City win their game in hand, 5 points ahead in the league title. I think City basically have to be perfect and hope Arsenal slip up.
Is it 9 left? Is it 27 points to play for?
Yes, I think so. And Arsenal do have some tricky games. They've got to go away to Newcastle, and they've obviously got to play at Anfield. Whatever you want to say about Liverpool, they rarely lose at Anfield.
So you would say, they've got 3 tough games left because they've got City, Liverpool away, Newcastle away. And
I know City have to play them as well, but they'll have a different manager, Chelsea, so maybe the players will actually decide to finish their chances.
It's very interesting.
Anything could happen. But I'll tell you what didn't happen, Gaskin, what hasn't happened since February. United cannot score a goal in the league. The last time... no, generally, I don't think... When was the last time they scored in the league? Wasn't it Leicester?
Oh, yeah, it was an international break, though.
Yeah, but still.
3 matches.
Oh, hey, that's 3 matches without a goal. So that's this one.
Okay, whatever, go on.
That's Liverpool, and it's Southampton, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what happened in this game, Gasky, from your perspective as a United fan?
They were just horrendous. Like, they couldn't string a pass together. The Newcastle literally just demolished them. Like, they just had all the possession. Fans were behind them. And there was just nothing there. Like, it was just, they got the ball, go break and make a chance, given away. Every time. It was it was the worst they played this season, by far. It was horrendous.
And that's a pretty bold statement, because they've obviously got beaten 7-0 by Liverpool.
Yeah, but then that Liverpool game was the worst 45 minutes. This was 90. Like, United against Liverpool, first half, you wouldn't say it was a 7-0 game.
Yeah.
This game, for 90 minutes, they were a shambles. And the fact that Martial came on for half an hour and he was arguably the best player on the pitch for United is concerning. Like, he's the only player that seems to, attacking player that seems to have technical ability to be able to, like, there was one point when he picked the ball up in his own box and he's gone around a player and he's passing and moving with the team and they're on a chance. And that came from him in his own box. And you know, and he's a, like, I always say to Martial, he could have been an absolutely amazing player, but injuries let him down, and you know,
bit
that's
of
one
attitude
example
as well, maybe. Bit of attitude.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And yes, and then I'll come back to what I was saying before about, you know, you sign a player like Casemiro and you take him out of the team. The midfield don't have a clue what to do. You haven't got a player that could do. Again, it's just like last season, a player that can do that job on his own. A job of sitting in front of the back four and protecting it and then linking. And when McTominay is doing that job, you're going to have someone else going to have to sit deeper, and then your whole team ends up deeper, and you've got nothing to go off.
Yeah.
So, but then, well, instead of, I'm not one that's just going to throw panic stations, because I said this for the last 7-8 years. It takes years and years to make a team with the same manager, with the same idea. Chopping and changing managers won't do anything, you know, because he's just going to be stuck with players he doesn't want. And I think I said a couple of weeks ago, the example is City players come through the youth. It already, because you've had the same manager for so many years, you know who he wants and who's good enough to play. If not, they're sold. And you make, like, you know, you got like 30 odd million from Southampton for signing a couple of City kids. You're getting money. United, however, you know, you're signing players. Next manager doesn't get any money, but McTominay ends up playing 150 games, who's not good enough to play for United. Alanga's not good enough to play for United, but they play so many games because a manager will come in, get his money in the summer. He's then stuck with half his squad being from past couple of managers, gets nothing in January. Okay, then you get the next season, you get a little bit of money there, and then you're sacked. And then you're stuck with just this mess. This is a squad of other managers. And this is where it just needs patience with. They've won a trophy. Cool. Finish top 4. That's the target. Get in Champions League, attract more players, and just keep getting players out and players in. That's just what you're going to have to do. But what the example is, January, you signed 2 players on loan. It's not, you know, Ten Hag wants a striker that can press from the front. Clearly, he's not been given the money. He's had to get Buddy Weghorst. It's his only option. Like, he's not been given anything. And then Sabitzer on loans is his only other option to replace Eriksen because he got injured. Do you know? And this is the problem. The fact that a player's got injured and he's had to go to the transfer market on deadline day and get a loan is evidence that the squad needs sorting out.
Yeah.
And it needs years. It needs years of it. So if they can constantly get top 4 and win trophies and stuff in this very competitive league, and allow him to get rid of players and bring players in and change what he wants to change, then the United will have, you know, they'll be competitive and they'll be near the top. But if, let's say they finish top 4 and they've won the Carabao Cup, and then the summer's like, right, no, you've done enough, no more, then the same thing's going to happen again. Yeah, but hopefully, you know, new owners and stuff come in, fingers crossed, and them owners just let him do his thing. That's what you're going to hope for, and not expect success because you've spent X amount of money. It's modern day football. There's going to be stupid amounts of money in it. It doesn't make a difference. So that's what it's going to take. But then don't take anything away from Newcastle, though, because Newcastle were absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's a team that deserves Champions League football based on the rest of the teams. They deserve top four.
Yeah, it was the exact opposite of like the performance in the League Cup final where Newcastle were like toothless.
Yeah, because the League Cup final was similar from the start where the fans were behind them, they were going for it. United shut them up. They got a goal, they shut them up, and then the Newcastle just couldn't carry on. It was gone. They didn't do that at St James's Park. The fans were behind them for 90 minutes, and there were no point United were like, let's shut this crowd up. Let's get them out of the game, and that was the problem. If you never know, if they created more and maybe nicked a goal, it definitely would have been a different ball game because the fans would have been quieted down. The heads might have gone down for Newcastle players. You don't know, but yeah,
it's
very annoying game.
It was obvious in this game, and it's been obvious basically all season when Casemiro's not in the team, and even when he is, that United have a big problem with the first phase of play, i.e. build-up play, and moving the ball from the goalkeeper and the defence to the midfield to give it to the dangerous players. That's obvious. And that's exemplified when Casemiro doesn't play, because he is capable of doing that. So obviously an understudy
Casemiro moves. You'll notice when they're doing that build-up for the back, which is modern-day football, he'll go looking for it, like, give it me, and then you get up pitch. But somebody hides. He doesn't go, I'm going to come and get it from you. He's like, okay, you go and do your thing, and that's the problem. Luke Shaw will end up with the ball, and he's looking around like, what do I do with this now? And he ends up just smacking it up and giving it back because that player isn't there for him to, play the ball with. But it's example. It's like there's a massive hole there from last season. They filled the hole in, but then as soon as you remove that hole again, the hole's still there. Just because you put something in it, you've got to put the stuff underneath that hole just in case you're taking out whatever's in there. And that's what they're lacking, and it's needed. But again, you can't do it overnight. You've signed him, perfect. Now someone needs to be his understudy. Definitely. Same with every position needs an understudy, and that's the one position they've needed for years, and they haven't got one. So that's what needs to come next.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, it is a long-term thing. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Is it fair to say that Ten Hag is the main man in terms of okaying signings and bringing in players?
I would, based on what's been signed, I would say so. Yeah,
because the likes of Anthony, like all these Dutch league players.
I would say so. He's the players he wants. Yeah.
So with that in mind,
maybe not first choice, but I would say they're on his list. It's not United signing them we'll come to Chelsea, but for my argument is it's not they weren't part of signings for Chelsea, whereas I think they are his signings.
So totally agree. So with that in mind, with the idea that Ten Hag is the one who's okaying, signings and players, etc., why are Man United in talks with David De Gea to extend his contract? Because we've established that there is a big issue with United in terms of build-up play, and a part of that he's not solely to blame, but part of that issue is the fact that De Gea is not a modern keeper and cannot play out from the back to a sufficient degree. And even when he gets the passes right, he doesn't even seem to realise why he's making the pass because he doesn't have that sort of brain. So we know he's an issue. So surely, if Ten Hag's in charge, he should be doing what Pep did with Joe Hart and going, right, good shot stopper, whatever, but I don't, good servant to the club, but we need to move on. So why do you think Ten Hag and United, and we assume therefore Ten Hag, are looking to extend his contract? Because he's not going to extend a contract to be an understudy, is he?
No, it's a good question because I don't know. Because they do need a keeper for the future. It's like other positions, you need to have that player ready to come in, and they haven't got it. There's a lot of, there's so many other positions that needed to be sorted, and they're getting sorted. The goalkeeper needs to be there. There needs to be an idea of it. They haven't got a sub-goalkeeper at the moment, really. They're getting loans in to cover the pre-position. So they're going to have to sign one. They can't just keep... If you ignore the fact that De Gea can't play whatever way they want to play, there's no sub. The sub's Tom Eaton, right? Who barely plays anyway. De Gea plays every match. So every other team has a sub-keeper. You play in the Carabao Cup, you play your sub-keeper. That's what 9 times out of 10 the teams do.
Yeah.
The fact he's playing every match is a thought of, like, why? He can't play his way. So there must be an idea there to get a sub-keeper. Is his idea keep De Gea and get another keeper in, and then we can kind of try and do what they tried to do with Henderson in terms of, mould one in. Because maybe you need to. But, me personally, right, as much as I love De Gea, for what he's done for the team and how long he's been here and whatnot, you just got to pull the plug. You just got to be like,
I agree.
Just bin him off, bring someone else in, and then you might get a keeper who's a pile of crap, and then you've got to do it again. You just got to take the risk.
No, yeah, I totally agree.
Look at Liverpool, where they've come out of nowhere. They spent 70 million on some Brazilian no one's heard of, and look at him; he's one of the best in the world.
Yeah, Arsenal did it with Ramsdale. City did it with Ederson.
Yeah, you've got to bite the bullet. You got to bite the bullet. But what's more interesting is if they're selling the club, why are they trying to negotiate with certain players? I don't know. So I don't understand how it all works in the background, but it's all weird. So
yeah, definitely. And then just as the last point I want to ask you on that with the build-up thing, am I being harsh, or is it a reasonable thing to say that Varane, whilst he's a good defender, he's not good in terms of build-up play?
Under pressure, that's not his job. But this is where if you had a keeper who was capable, you wouldn't need that problem. You wouldn't have that problem. Martinez can do it. Martinez is fantastic at it. It's his job to do it. He can pick the ball up and he can ping it left and right.
Yeah.
Whereas, Varane can't do that, and you can tell when it goes to the right side, it's a bit of a struggle. When it goes to the left, it's absolutely fine. But that's where maybe a keeper, a change of keeper can help that. You don't have to have the ball that much.
That was Newcastle 2, Manchester United 0. Newcastle challenging for the top 4 now. Could they be in the Champions League spots? United falling down to 4th place. Still a relatively comfortable cushion above Spurs, but still, it is all to play for, and anything could happen. And speaking of things that have happened, many managers have been sacked since last we spoke, my lovely listeners. Brendan Rodgers and Patrick Vieira and Graham Potter are all gone. They have all been binned off. Rodgers and Vieira sort of understand it a bit more. Leicester and Palace, they've been in the job for a while, and they are in a relegation fight this season. So it sort of makes sense to move them on, given their terrible form for both sides. But Gasky, Graham Potter has been sacked, and I'm very passionate about this subject, and I'm very angry and annoyed and disappointed in the sacking. So I'm very passionate about this, but I want to hear your thoughts on this first before I go off on a tirade.
Yeah, so it's a really odd one for me, because £600 million spent, and I think we can agree not his players, because half of them players not. Are you going to tell me that Graham Potter has come in with this list and these are the players that he wanted to sign just before, obviously, whatever he's got left for that transfer window? And it's all about time. You've seen it with other teams that have not given managers time, and they just end up in a constant yo-yo of up and down, and it's I just don't get it. Yes, they should be better than 11 for wherever they are, but to throw all these players about and then just sack your manager makes no sense. You've signed players from no one's ever heard of. You've nicked one from Arsenal, arguably, and you've constantly backed him, and then you've just decided now enough's enough halfway through a season that you need that final push, and 10 games left, and you've decided with 10 games left we need someone else now. What are you expecting with the last 10 games? I just don't get it.
Yeah, and just touching on that point you made about, are these his players? You're absolutely right. Obviously, they are clearly not his players. Is Graham Potter really going to walk into Chelsea, previously managing Oostersunds and Brighton, and immediately going, oh yeah, that random Ukrainian guy who's been playing pretty decently for Shakhtar in the Champions League this season, yeah, get me him. But no. Bowley wants him because he's a weird man-child and saw that Arsenal wanted him and decided that, Arteta wants him, so he must be good. Yeah, so I'm going to have him instead.
There's no thought in my mind that they've come in, or there's a scout at Chelsea that's thought, we need to get Mudryk before Arsenal do. It's not that, no player is that player where, there's going to be that argument of we need him over him. that team. We need to make sure we get him. No, not at all.
I don't know if you're. Sorry, go on. No, you go.
I was just going to say it's not the it's just not the manager that's going to be like coming in with his foot down, get me Mudryk. Of course, he's not going to be like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, but it was after the first Southampton encounter when I think Southampton, beat them when Tuchel was still a manager, and allegedly after that match, Chelsea submitted a bid for Lavia purely based on who only just this season moved from City's academy to Southampton. That's just a sort of knee-jerk scattergun approach this owner, this mentalist owner is deploying.
Take that player off them. That's kind of the attitude it is. It's not Football Manager. You can't just go and throw money and then that player will be like, okay,
yeah,
I'll come to you.
Yeah, it's just so odd. People trying to say, Mo calling you out. People trying to say that because we'll get to the striker issue in a moment. Going, it's his fault. He didn't have a striker. He should have just gone and signed one. You can just see the way that they dealt with the Aubameyang situation as evidence of like how incompetent these owners are, and the fact that it's clearly them calling the shots. Like they get and how incompetent they are. They bring in Aubameyang, the idea being that he's going to be for Tuchel, and then he plays like one game under Tuchel, and then Tuchel sacks, and then you've got Aubameyang just chilling there, who's got like a myriad of attitude problems.
You've got 10 games left, right? For me, what would have been a fair amount would be, right, 10 matches left, finish the season, see where you finish, and then you speak with the manager and you go, right, okay, that was poor. We need to be better. What idea have you got? And whatnot. And if you're not happy that you can't see a future with him, then you sack him. Or then you move on and then you see what else is available. Not with 10 games left. With 10 games left, that to me is you have admitted you've thrown in the towel for the season, and okay, we'll just bring someone else in, and we'll just so he can get to know the players before next season. That to me is the attitude that they've gone with there.
Yeah, it just makes no sense at all, and they've wasted so much money on signing him from Brighton and then sacking him. I think you told me it was around 60 million.
60 in total, I think it is.
Yeah, could have bought a striker for that, but whatever. And yeah, it's just this really like this fake idea of Bowley, I'm going to come in. It's not going to be like old Chelsea. We're going to have a long-term project and a long-term strategy.
It's worse than Abramovich.
Yeah, it's like two managers sacked in like the space of 6 or 8 months or however long it's been. It's just obscene and just petty and childish from them. And I do have a lot of sympathy for Graham Potter because I know a lot of Chelsea fans, on Twitter, I'm just basing this off Twitter to be fair. Going, we want Potter out and it's like they've been used to a lot of short-term success, but the whole point was that this is going to be a long-term thing. Potter was never going to come in and with an incredibly bloated squad and like £600 million worth of players, he was never going to be immediately going to make that all work in the space of like a season. Because not only is he not that sort of manager, look at Brighton, it took him a year or two to turn Brighton from a relegation threatened side to one in the top half of the table. So he's never going to do that for a start. But also, that would be an almost impossible task for nearly any manager in the world.
I don't think any manager could go to Chelsea right now. Well, obviously not right now, because there's 10 games left, but couldn't go to Chelsea after spending stupid amounts of money and win everything, which is kind of what's in Billy's brain. Win everything. I'll give you £1 billion squad. Go and win everything. No, it doesn't work like that.
It's just bizarre. He should have been given more time based on common sense and also based on their apparent new philosophy and strategy. Based on what we've seen at Brighton, where if you give him 2, 3, 4 years, he will achieve very good things. De Zerbi's a very good manager and he's doing very good work this season, but he didn't do that himself, did he? Who built the foundation?
And at Brighton, right? If you tell any Brighton fan, right, you'll have a team where you've got a stable top half Premier League finish, they'll take that. Of course you will, like, that'd be interesting because we could push European football. Yeah, that to them is overachieving, and that's what Potter's done. And now Potter has got the opportunity to go and do more. And you've basically gone to. Well, we said, didn't we? We actually said anyone but Chelsea because Chelsea will destroy him. And
what a surprise! We were right again.
Right. This podcast is facts. We only go out with facts. We go out with facts. And can I also add, unrelated, but I was right about Almiron because he's done fuck all since.
Exactly. He had a purple patch. He's a fraud.
I was perfect.
Yes.
This podcast speaks nothing but facts.
Exactly. Nothing but from the Knobcast. Yes. So it's just really annoying, and people will look at the short-term form, and it wasn't acceptable, obviously. But I'm sorry. Let's take. We can look at that Aston Villa game in isolation is a where they lost 2-0 at home, very bad. But that's a perfect description of what Potter was having to work with at Chelsea. Mudryk is 1-on-1. He scores that. I tell you what, Potter's not sacked. I guarantee you that. If he scores that basic,
if Mudryk didn't basically do a back pass back to the keeper, and Cucurella decided I'm a fucking nut job and goes running around and jumping in front of Koulibaly, it could have been a different outcome. It's clearly just idiotic players who are just taking matters into their own hands. Potter signed Cucurella for Brighton, and he was great. So why is he just randomly off the rails at Chelsea? It's odd. Potter's just going to change his whole managerial tactics and stuff. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I know that lots of people like to underplay stats and XG and stuff, but it is very important because I think it was something mental. Potter's Chelsea scored 12 goals from an XG of 24. So they should have scored around twice as many as they actually did. Yeah. And why is that, Gasky? Why is that?
Right. Well, where does it come from? The XG's come from the tactics, and where do the tactics come from?
Yes, and
the manager.
And who isn't finishing those chances?
Oh yeah, Kai Havertz.
Havertz and Raheem Sterling and Mudryk
and Sterling.
Yeah, as much as I love Sterling, he's literally renowned for missing sitters and not converting chances. And Mudryk seems to be that player too.
Let's be fair. At City, they were creating so many chances, and he was getting the goals because they kept, creating them.
Yeah,
but
it's almost as if you need a striker.
Incompetence. And you watch. I think I was watching the Chelsea Villa game, and Havertz just stands about and half-arsely kicks the ball at the goal. If you don't want to be there, don't be there.
Yeah. It's annoying because I'm so convinced the evidence points to if you give Potter time in the first instance, he will succeed. Exhibit A, Brighton. Add on, he wasn't even given a proper striker at Brighton either. And yet, actually, before he moved on to Chelsea this season, he left Brighton in 4th in the table, and they were actually overperforming on their XG. They're currently underperforming it now under De Zerbi. But so Potter, it was clearly working after you give him enough time. Now, and remember, who was he working with? Glenn Murray and Maupay and Welbeck, who's injured half the time and isn't that good anyway. So not an actual striker. Who is he working with now? We've said it. It's Felix, who is good, but he still misses a lot of sitters for a player of his quality.
Again, he's not a striker.
He's not a number 9. He's not clinical.
He's not a striker. The only striker they've got at the club is Aubameyang, who clearly he's got mental issues or something's going on with him.
And he's washed as well. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
a dusty player.
Washed.
Yeah. So give
him Glenn Murray. Do you know what I mean? Even if you gave him Glenn Murray or Danny Welbeck, at least you'd have a pitching striker.
Yeah, it's just, and this is why it's so unfair to me. People are overlooking all of the hard, the almost impossible situation that he was in terms of the mental owner and people that say, oh, but he had X amount of money to spend. That doesn't necessarily equate to immediate results.
This is the problem. It's like. But also, it's like you're saying, right? Oh, but you've spent this much and they've done this bad. But they're not his players. He's not picked these. He's been just been thrown these players and just gone. Right, go on, get us Champions League football or whatever. But no, you've not given him his players. So
it's very frustrating. He was never. If you want a short-term manager, then don't get Graham Potter. Go and get Conte or Mourinho or whoever. It's just. I wouldn't be
surprised if it were for Graham Potter just to take him off Brighton.
Can you imagine? But you know what's so funny? I've seen some Chelsea fans, again, I'm using Twitter, so maybe that's not fair, but some of them are saying, oh yeah, get someone like, Thomas Frank who can build a team.
You've just got Graham Potter.
Graham Potter is. Oh, if he was given...
But okay, let's go to the next step. Next manager for Chelsea. Now they're going, Nagelsmann. The same type of manager.
Mm-hmm. A project long-term manager.
He decided he's not good enough. So
also, if you are Nagelsmann or whoever, or Enrique, why would you want to come to Chelsea? Because you've just seen what they've done.
Any manager that goes to Chelsea, they have to know you're staying for a year.
So that's the Graham Potter situation. Apologies, we had a lot more to say about Graham Potter, but we've been having a lot of technical issues, and you can probably tell by Gasky's face.
I was going to say, we've gone from starting where it's like nice and bright. You'd think we took a whole day.
Exactly. That's actually how long we've been messing around these issues for. However long. But there we go. That's the Graham Potter situation. Suffice to say, we both think it's a very stupid situation all round. But we are going to end with some viewer questions. Knobgas, one of, if not my favourite section of the entire podcast. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. If you want to get involved in this, you can do so by signing up to the old Patreon. Link is in the video description. We'll start with Miz, and just on Potter. Will Potter become a manager at another club, and if so, where?
You think he will? He'll get somewhere else. Where is not sure. I mean, Tottenham maybe, but I don't know. So there's the only team available, really, isn't it? Tottenham.
I think that might actually be a perfect appointment. To be fair,
Tottenham are trying to get that type of manager in. They're trying to get someone who can build, a team rather than expect immediate success with millions.
Yeah.
And I think Potter will probably be a better fit there than Chelsea, so that would probably make more sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love it if he came to England, and
Oh, I would love him to take over from Southgate.
Yeah.
Sadly, Southgate's got a new contract, so.
Oh, has that been confirmed?
I think he's got until at least the Euros, I think it was.
Right, okay, yeah.
So you'll have to wait for it if you want to.
I will. I'm still Southgate in, but due to all the good, but I do still think there are key issues there, and I do think that Potter would be a better choice, but that's the thing. Pim asks, how have there been 12 sackings, but David Moyes isn't one of them? There might even be 13 sackings now.
It's a good question. I don't know. Is the answer to that one, because I'd say I thought even when we were probably on 4 sackings or 5 sackings this season, I think I had him as next after Lampard, to be honest. So,
God, that was this season. I forgot Lampard was Everton manager.
That was this season, yeah.
It's been a long one, I feel like. I mean, I do think West Ham have enough quality to stay up. I think they will be fine.
But you shouldn't have the issues. You shouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. They shouldn't be in a relegation fight.
Issue, isn't it? Yeah.
And maybe it's because they're also in Europe. Don't have the squad. I don't know. But yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's lasted this long. Maybe Graham Potter should go to West Ham. That would be another really good appointment.
Well, let's put it this way, right? If you've got 60 million out of Chelsea, then I'm pretty sure you could deal with maybe a West Ham level. Mm-hmm. West Ham, you never know. West Ham level could be perfect for him.
Yeah. Jack asks, who's the best under-21 player in the league, and why is it Lavia, the Southampton midfielder?
So that's a big statement.
It's a loaded question.
This is the part where I'd name players and they're not even under-21. I mean, Foden's still under-21, isn't he?
Nah, I think he's 22.
Is he actually not now? Jesus Christ.
I think Saka is. I think Saka's 21.
I would say, I think Saka's the obvious candidate. Then you've got up-and-coming that Evan Ferguson's one to watch at Brighton, which again shows Brighton's academy is fantastic.
Yeah,
recruitment, and then Lavia's amazing as well. So he'll make a big move at some point.
Yeah, I think City. I know City have a buyback option of like 40 million, but I don't think that doesn't kick in until next season.
And also I think this is another of how far ahead City are. He isn't good. I don't think he'll ever be good enough for City, but he'll be a good player. But City are just another level. Whereas I don't think he'll ever be that level of player. But not to say that Tottenham or Newcastle, for example, who are up and coming, can bring him in. But you never know.
You never
definitely
know.
Quality there.
Absolutely. And if Southampton go down, he's definitely got to go somewhere, hasn't he?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So.
And then finally, Will. It's a very, very big question here. Will, who's a Borough fan, who asks, if West Ham / Leicester go down and struggle financially like Sunderland have done due to the massive reduction in revenue they'll face, etc., should the Football League / footballing pyramid be responsible to help those sorts of big clubs, or should they just let them die, i.e., Bury?
So it's an interesting one because, well, the whole situation with Bury was they were allowed to be bought by someone who had no interest in the sport, just wanted to get himself out of a pickle, and that's the problem. The difference is West Ham and Leicester have been huge investments from people, and where do you draw the line? They've bought the club, they're invested in the club, and at one point do they decide enough's enough, we've took a loss, sell the club, or they're just going to let the club? There's no point in selling the club now. We'll just deal with what we've got and save money and whatever. It's where do you draw the line? Like, it needs like a regulator, someone to come in, and actually any big takeovers of clubs needs to be checked to make sure this person actually wants, for footballing reasons, to own this club. That's the priority. That's the problem. Like Bury had, was this guy's come in, gone, okay, so basically take money out of the club and then walk away when they go bust. And that's the problem. You need to avoid them situations where they're not going to come in and go, oh, they'll make plenty of money for me, and then just let the club, like look at United, in £1 billion worth of debt nearly. And that's over 20 years or however long it's been. And that's clearly I'm sorry, but if you're having to borrow money to buy a team, that's the first sign of, wait a second, need to look into this. Because why would you go and try and buy one of the biggest clubs in the world if you need to take a loan?
Yeah, so I think it's a tricky one. I don't think it's as simple as, just give them loads of money, because if you do that, then there's a risk that clubs will sort of become not like dependent on it, but they will there won't even be an effort from the owners to worry about keeping the club afloat, because they'll just be like, I'll just rely on the payments that I'm going to get.
Yeah, go and spend that much in the transfer window because we'll get saved anyway. So you don't want that kind of.
Yeah, so there's got to be some accountability, but at the same time, you can't just let them die like Bury. So I went, but the Bury one was weird because the owner never should have been the owner. But that was just like mismanaged totally. Like I think City at one point tried to help them. They gave them, because Bury didn't have a training ground or something, so City let them train at their I think at their academy ground or whatever. And the only rule was just keep it clean, keep it tidy, keep it in good order. And they didn't. So City were like, well, you couldn't even do that, so now we're going to have to kick you out. And that's and that's due to the poor running of that club. So
yeah,
I think rather than it being sort of like the football pyramid has to make sure everyone's fine, I think it's more to do with like we need more of a prevention rather than a reaction, and that is done by getting an independent regulator in who can. So, for example, the Glazers never should have been allowed to buy Man United ever, and there are loads of other situations where like owners clearly should never have been in that position before.
Yeah, because if you're buying if a football club's getting bought, and let's put it this way, they're not many people are going to go and here's X amount of £1 million, you now own the club, like a purchase. There's going to be like loans involved and stuff. There usually is, but there's got to be understanding of how long until you actually pay this back? How long is it going to be until this is sorted out? Not okay, we're going to borrow. I think the Glazers borrow like 300 odd million, and now you owe $1 billion. How can that be allowed to happen? That these situations can't keep these happen. United are lucky that they're the size they are, or they would be. If you were to shrink down the size of the club, that club would be gone by now.
Yeah.
So it just needs to be avoided in future of anything like that happening. It's like with Leicester and West Ham, like they're owned. Like Leicester's owners are very good owners. I don't know what happened with the transfer window, but the way that they've treated the fans and things have been treated have been fantastic. But what's to say if they do get relegated that they're just going to go right? We'll sell the club. We're not investing in anything now. We're going to look at selling, and then at least then they're going to get out of it, and you're going to get another owner in. But you got to make sure that other owner's not going to go, I've got a loan out of £100 million to help me here, and then they end up getting the team more in debt. That's like saying that's why you need the regulators to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and also it is obviously very tricky to run a football club, but it's not like it's impossible for smaller clubs to do well in the Premier League. I mean, very good examples are like Brighton and Brentford. That they're not known for generating loads of revenue, but they are very well run and they are very astute. So it is possible.
Even teams that do the whole yo-yo of up and down. they've obviously run well to have that achievement of like Norwich, of going up and down. Don't invest heavily, but they're clearly up there because they're not vanishing away like happened with Southampton and Sunderland. And they run well in a certain regard. The footballing side is crap, obviously, but the actual running of the club is good. And that's exactly. But like, let's be fair, right? Football, you don't make money in a football club. There's no way, because if the biggest club in the world, United, is worth $6 billion, and one of your assets you've signed is 100 million, that's a very high percentage for one asset of a business. Not a chance you're making money. You're not. So he's got the only reason you want to buy a club is for footballing purposes, whereas a lot of owners are coming in and to make a quick million. So, and that's what needs to be avoided.
Definitely. I was going to say one more thing about it. What was I going to say? It was going to be wise and brilliant, probably.
Can't be that wise.
About the responsibility of the clubs, was it? Was it something like that? There's just got to be. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Maybe we've already got FFP, and whether you like it or not, it's a thing. Maybe the solution is to do what they've done in La Liga with with the salary cap and how and like the league saying from the off, right, this is actually how much you can spend in a season, and people can complain about
well, so that's a fair way to go about it, because then you get to see who's actually not run well. Like Valencia in a relegation battle, Malaga, who were in the Champions League not like 10 years ago, are now looking at going into the third division. It shows that just having unlimited funds can end in tears of other leagues, but it does need some kind of limitations, because you get to a point when, like with United, they're signing players on stupid salaries, and then you end up in a situation that goes, I should be earning that much, and then you're stuck, and then players are getting paid stupid money, and then that ends up spreading across other leagues. It does need some kind of like limitation.
Yeah, but it's always going to be a tricky one, because you can sort out your own domestic league, but then are you handicapping yourself on the international stage, because then you can't compete with everyone else? It's a tricky one, that's for sure. I don't think there's an easy answer, but hey, we're not in that position. That's not our problem. Yeah. But long and short, there's got to be some sort of regulator, 100%, because you don't want a club to die. I mean, I guess if a club's going to die, they could always nationalise it. That's what they did with that's what they did in the 2008 financial crisis, when like the banks went bust. They just nationalised it and saved it. Maybe they should nationalise Bury, and Bury can be owned by the government. I don't know. Anyway, guys,
their shitty voting system at the start with. Merge, God's sake, merge.
Oh, the Bury. I might need to do a YouTube video on Bury, because it's all been kicking off behind the scenes.
It has.
It might be an interesting topic. Very quickly, Gasky, Arsenal versus Liverpool is probably the most interesting match for upcoming fixtures before the next podcast. Yeah. If Arsenal win at Anfield, I think they win the league.
I would, yes. I think we're in the end game now. And
sorry, Doctor Strange.
And where these games now, no matter how bad Liverpool are playing, when it's a big match, it can be different. And going to Emirates, is it Emirates or Anfield?
Anfield.
I'm reading the notes and you put after Liverpool. Confused me.
Oh, sorry.
So if Arsenal win that, I think it's done. I don't think they're going to slip up heavily enough for City to catch them. I mean, and also I think Chelsea play Liverpool midweek, don't they, as well, which is obviously not related to this. But
mid-table battle.
Liverpool winning that could push on. You never know. But yeah, I think that game. I think Liverpool winning will be interesting, because the City Arsenal game is at the end of the month.
I think so. Yeah.
So it could be spicy. That game could be one match. It could be, and that's where it'll get interesting. So
yeah, City definitely have to win that one. That's a must-win game.
That's a must-win game for City, and also City just need to hope that another team
if
can.
If Arsenal draw once, it goes down to goal difference. Assuming City win that game, it goes down to goal difference.
Right, okay. And obviously City have to win every match still, but we already know City have to win every game. I think City will have to win every game now to win the league.
Definitely. I agree. Yeah. Unless Arsenal capitulate, but I can't.
Unless somehow they have another one of them weeks. That one week they had where it just went wrong.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Indeed, but we shall see what we see. Thank you so much for sticking with us, despite all the technical issues, which we've hopefully ironed out, but we shall see.
Thank you, Dr. Google.
Indeed. Gasky, you've been Gasky, haven't you?
I have been, as always.
Wonderful stuff. Nobbins has been Nobbins. And we will see you guys next time. I really hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Spread the word, spread the pod, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.